guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel. So it's been a little minute. I have been incredibly sick, so I really wanted to get this video up before Gossip Girl season 2 aired. As I'm filming this, it aired on Thursday or Friday, I think, on the 1st of December. So it's a few days late, so apologies for that. I think there's been 2 episodes that have come out so far. I have not seen them yet. But I thought it would be kind of fun to do a little recap video. If you want to watch the new season and you're like, I completely forgot what happened in the old season, or if for some reason you want to watch the new season but you don't have time to catch up on the old season, or whatever it may be, today we're going to do a full rundown of everything that happened in Gossip Girl season 1. Obviously we're talking about the reboot for HBO Max. We're gonna go episode by episode, just kind of run down the main plot points of that episode, and then at the end I'm gonna do kind of more of my opinions and things I liked, things I didn't like, and things I'm looking forward to for season 2. Please bear with me if my voice sounds weird or gross. I'm still not fully over it, so. But I really wanted to film this video and get it up at least before the next few episodes come out. Firstly, just upon watching it for the first time, I was naturally a little bit nervous because if you watch my channel, you will know I love the original Gossip Girl. So quite big shoes to fill, and I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to do it in a way where I was still able to enjoy it and not just constantly be comparing it to the old one. But I do think it stands on its own quite well. I really enjoy that, you know, all the uniforms are the same and that some of the locations are the same, you know, it's still constant. They do quite a few like mirroring of scenes from the original and like lines that have been kind of taken from the original, which I do enjoy because then it makes it fun as a, you know, kind of like original viewer to watch this and kind of pick out those things. And they kind of name drop the old characters, which is a lot of fun.
The school produced great people. Caroline Kennedy, Colson Whitehead, Nate Archibald.
Kristen Bell is back doing the voice of Gossip Girl, which I think really helps, because if it was a different voice, I feel like it would just throw the whole thing off. But because it is her still, you still get that nostalgic sound of her voice.
Been a minute. Did you miss me? I know I've missed you.
I do feel that it has enough story, and also I'm invested in some of the characters enough for it to, yeah, kind of stand on its own, and I do really enjoy it. So with that being said, let's get straight into episode 1. So episode 1 is called Just Another Girl in the MTA. It starts when Zoya moves to New York. Zoya's kind of I don't know, it's hard because it's definitely an ensemble cast. We don't really have a main character as such, but I suppose it could be Zoya because it's kind of, you know, the story starts when she moves to the Upper East Side, and a lot of things are kind of shown through her perspective and following her. I think less so towards the end of the season, but definitely in the beginning it is quite Zoya focused. In kind of like tandem with Zoya, I would say the next biggest character in this show is Julian Calloway. She is Zoya's half sister. So the reason that Zoya has moved to New York from Buffalo is because her and Julian have kind of been reconnecting privately, because their dads are in a big feud and they do not like each other. So they have been, you know, secretly messaging and planned to get Zoya to move to New York so they could spend more time together, but they are pretending like they don't know each other. Running alongside the students, we also have a whole thing with the teachers. Whereas I feel like before in Gossip Girl there was no real mention of any teachers other than Miss Carr. And Headmistress Quella. We didn't really have any, you know, regularly occurring teachers, but in this there is quite a big focus on the teachers and the adults, whereas before with Gossip Girl you had quite a big focus on the teens but also their parents. I think in this show you've got more of a 50-50 divide between the students and also the teachers and the parents kind of like wrapped into one, so you've got the different age groups, the different generations going on. Their whole thing is that they want to keep these students in line. They feel like they are disrespectful and they kind of want a way to humble them. And the leader of this is a teacher called Kate Keller, and one of the other teachers, I don't think she even has a name, but she mentions that when she went to Constance there was Gossip Girl, and she shows them all Gossip Girl, you know, posts about Chuck and Blair and the fact that it was Dan Humphrey, you know, all along kind of thing, which was kind of cute. And Kate decides that she wants to bring Gossip Girl back. She wants to do a Gossip Girl revival, and to do this she makes an Instagram account. We get to see the main cast at the Met steps, things like that. I do like the little kind of homages that we get in this first episode. Quickly, we're going to run through the main people that you need to remember. So firstly, we've got Zoya. So Zoya Lott, she's obviously moved from Buffalo. She is Julian's half sister. She is kind of, I don't know if I would call her the Dan, because she's not really like Dan at all, but she is that kind of outsider looking into this rich world. Her and her dad don't really have a lot of money. She's there on a scholarship. She's very much into activism and calling out this group for their, you know, privilege and the things that they say and the things that they do with the money that they have. So she's a really good kind of balance to the rest of the group, because similarly to Gossip Girl, you know, Dan and Vanessa and Jenny were kind of like one view, and then everyone else, you know, had loads of money. You know, we have Blair, Nate, Serena, Chuck, the minions, like everyone had money. And that is the same in this, except Zoya's actually the only one that doesn't. So she kind of has to she has to go it alone in this series, whereas at least Dan had Jenny and Vanessa. And then we have Julian Calloway, who I previously mentioned. She's kind of our it girl. She's an influencer, she's got a lot of followers, and she is Zoya's half sister, the most popular girl at school, that kind of vibe, you know, kind of a queen bee type. Then we have Obi Bergman, I think is how you say it, and he is Julian's boyfriend. He is also the richest of the rich. Out of all of them, he absolutely has the most money, but he is kind of like Nate in that he kind of tries to not deny that he has that money, but he tries to kind of separate himself from having all that money, tries to combat that with, you know, activism, you know, trying to support causes and charities and speak his mind a bit more. He's in that kind of place where Nate was in season 1, where he was like, I don't want, you know, the label of having loads of money. I want to have my own life. That's kind of where he's at. Then we have Audrey Hope. So she is one of Julian's best friends, and I would say probably her most genuine best friend out of the bunch, and she is Archie's girlfriend. She's so cute. She's definitely one of my favorites. In the beginning she is quite cold, especially to Zoya, but I think as the show goes on we kind of get to see her grow and soften and show a nicer side to her, and I think deep down she is a real sweetheart. So then we have Archie Menzies, and he is Audrey's boyfriend. He's also Obi's best friend, so that's kind of how he also like links into the group. It's all very intertwined. He is very, you know, chill, very down to earth. He's again is probably one of the richest. I think him and Obi are up there for the richest of the rich. He's very sweet. He's not really fussed about most things. He definitely wants to keep the peace. So then we have Max Wolf, who is definitely our Chuck Bass for this season. I feel like with the other ones I kind of struggle to assign them to OG characters, which I think is good, because when they're so obviously carbon copies of original characters, then I find it hard to separate them, and I'm like, well, you're just not as good as the original. But I think with this show what they've done really well is that you could see glimmers of the old characters in the new characters. So kind of like Nate, you know, struggle with his wealth in Obi, Zoya kind of feeling like the outsider with Dan, but ultimately they are still very much their own characters, and I wouldn't say that Obi is like Nate at all, and I wouldn't say that Zoya is like Dan at all, with the exception of Max. So Max is definitely supposed to be the Chuck Bass of this series. I think because Chuck was such a big character for them in the original Gossip Girl, and his type of character, I think, is one that was very entertaining to people. You know, not the kind of character that we saw so much in teen dramas at the time. I can't even think, you know, like 90210, Gossip Girl, even things like Desperate Housewives, or I can't think of another show that has a character like Chuck Bass for this kind of target audience. I think because of the success of his character, they wanted somebody like him, somebody that was, you know, a bit more edgy and a bit more sexually liberated, and someone that was, I don't know, but Max, I think I really like him. He's definitely one of my favorites because he's very sweet as well. He definitely has a lot of struggles, kind of like how Chuck did. He does outrageous things, but he also has a very sweet, soft side to him that I do really like, and he's also very funny. He kind of has those one-liners that Chuck had. He's definitely our kind of like bachelor type for this show. Monet DeHaan, she is one of Julian's friends, but she's very much in it for what it can do for her. So she's got loads of money as well, it's something like that, but she's kind of more like her PR representative. She organizes her Instagram and makes sure that Julian's, you know, image is good and things like that. I think she wants to kind of start her own PR firm, or just kind of, you know, just kind of rule the influencer space, and she definitely is using Julian to do that. And then her kind of like duo partner is Luna La. I think it's Luna La. She is Julian's stylist kind of thing, you know, helps her choose her outfits, but is also in with Monet in that kind of PR world. So they're kind of a little duo, kind of go everywhere together, do everything together, that kind of thing. So when Zoya and Obi meet for the first time, they kind of click pretty instantly because they're both interested in activism and similar groups. And we kind of see immediately that Julian doesn't seem to get him. They don't really seem to be into the same things. She doesn't take an interest in him or anything that he is interested in. She more kind of cares about, obviously, her Instagram and how Obi looks for her brand. We also have a kind of sexual tension between Max, Archie, and Audrey. Despite being in like a seemingly happy relationship, especially when you compare it to Julian and Obi, they both seem to have this kind of crush on Max. So there are two other teachers that you should remember aside from Kate, and those are Jordan and Wendy. So Jordan obviously has the hots for Kate. That's basically like his whole character. And he's kind of like a partner in crime a little bit. He's definitely the most involved aside from Kate. And then we also have Wendy, who she works in admin, and she's kind of just there. She like pops up from time to time. Not as much as Jordan, but definitely enough to be remembered. So Wendy, because she works in admin, she finds out that Zoya got her scholarship because it's actually one that Davis pays for. So Davis Calloway is Julian's dad. So he funds a scholarship every year, and Julian was able to sneakily get that scholarship assigned to Zoya specifically. So a blast goes out on Gossip Girl kind of exposing this, and Zoya's really upset. She feels like she took the spot away from somebody else, and she doesn't like that Julia lied to her. Their mum is called Marion, and I'll give you the backstory on her now. So Marion was married to Davis Calloway, Julian's dad, and they were together until Julian was about 2 or 3, I think. And then she left them to be with Nick, which is Zoya's dad. I think he says they were like friends in college or something, and then they just like reconnected, and she decided to be with him. She was pregnant with Zoya, and then during Zoya's birth she died. I think they said she had lupus. So they go to this like party thing, and Julian's just completely consumed within herself. You know, Zoya's not really enjoying it, and Obi offers to walk her home. It's raining, so they're all soaked, and he says, you know, do you want to come upstairs, dry off, and then you can walk back home when the rain stopped. She says yes and goes in. As they're changing, there's like this big window, and Jordan takes a picture of them changing, which firstly is weird because he's literally their teacher, so that's gross. But also secondly, Zoya's only 14, so she is fully underaged. Like, she's not naked, but it's still fucking weird. And Gossip Girl posts it to kind of be like, oh, you know, Obi is cheating on Julian with her half-sister. Obi kind of confides in Zoya and says that when he and Julian first started going out, she wasn't like this. They were both interested in the same things and they would have fun, but she's just kind of become consumed with all this other stuff, and he feels like, you know, he kind of just shows up wearing whatever she wants him to wear, and that's their whole relationship now. When Julian sees the photo, she says, you know, to Zoya, don't worry about it. I obviously know that it's not true, but people at school think that it is true. So they come up with this plan because Julian is walking in a fashion show, which, side note, fashion shows are so Gossip Girl, aren't they? That is just so like the essence of Gossip Girl, is the fashion and the style. Their plan is that Zoya will come to the fashion show. She will try to get into the after party, but Julian will have left her off the list. She will create a big scene outside being like, you know, you need to let me in, you need to let me in. Gossip Girl will post it and it will seem as though Julian has kind of regained the power in this little dynamic. But Monet and Luna are like, you need to be stricter with her, you need to be harsher, you can't trust her. And Julian's like, it's absolutely fine, don't worry about it. So they come up with a plan all on their own. They take Zoya's phone, and during Julian's like big moment, you know, when she's walking on the fashion show, they airdrop a picture of Max's business with his consent. He did consent to having the picture taken, I'll put that in there, to everybody in the audience, to take away from Julian's big moment and make it seem like Zoya tried to sabotage her. So, you know, Zoya's really upset by this. It's kind of, again, you know, similar to Dan. How can you treat each other this way? Julian's very nonchalant about the whole thing, which, you know, upsets Zoya, and they have this big argument. Julian tells Zoya, like, look, you could take me down if you wanted to, so I'm not worried. And she gets in the car with Obi, and Obi, you know, has overheard her being so awful to Zoya, and he breaks up with her because, you know, she isn't the same person she used to be. They aren't the same as they used to be. When Zoya gets home, side note, I loved Zoya's outfit. It was so cool. Nick is sat there and he has seen everything online. He knows all about Julian, he knows all about the fashion show, he knows all about everything, about the scholarship. So he is fuming at her for orchestrating this entire thing. At the end of this episode, we see that Archie and Audrey seem to have a bit of an understanding about having a crush on Max. They're kind of both okay with the fact that they do. At the beginning of this episode, I think Kate bumps into Julian and she's very rude and dismissive about her. And then flash forward to now at the end of the episode, after this whole Gossip Girl thing has kind of started to take off, they bump into each other again and Julian apologizes to her and Kate kind of sees that Gossip Girl is working. Episode 2 is called She's Having a Baby. So we're introduced to a new parent, which is Catherine, or they call her Kiki, and that is Audrey's mum. So she is in quite a dark depression. She has just been left by Audrey's dad. He's divorced her and left them for his assistant. And because she is so down, she kind of doesn't show up for Audrey and the things that she needs. You know, Audrey is very much taking care of her, you know, getting her out of bed, you know, all this kind of stuff. It upsets Audrey and is creating quite a divide between their relationship, and there's a fundraiser coming up, and I think Audrey helped organize it, I can't remember, and you know, she kind of begs her to come to this fundraiser. Obi tells Julian that he's going to bed, like she's like, can we talk about this? He's like, no, I'm going to bed, leave me alone. But he actually goes to meet Zoya. Someone takes a picture and Gossip Girl posts it, so Julian knows that it was a lie. So Monet's like, right, we could fix this. Just post an old picture of you and Obi on your story as if it's a new picture. It'll discredit Gossip Girl and we'll, you know, brush this under the rug. And this is another side note, but I love all of Zoya's outfits, and I really love how she styles her uniform. I just love the way that it's like with the original Gossip Girl, you know, Blair was always very, she wore the blazers and the headbands and more of a uniform, and Serena would always be very much, you know, so much more casual, thrown together, more fun pieces kind of put in there, seeing how she could kind of push the boundaries of the school uniform. I love that that is carried over to this new show. You know, you have Audrey in her cardigans and her black tights, and she's so cute, and you have Julian wears, you know, more of the blazers and sweatshirts, and Max is very flamboyant, kind of like how Chuck was, you know, with his signature scarf. Max wears a lot more brighter colors, kind of pushes the boundaries a bit more. Obi is very chill, pretty much just wears like, kind of like Nate, just wears the standard uniform, just goes with it. And I love Zoya. Zoya kind of reminds me of Jenny in the way that she styles her uniform. She wears a lot of kind of like, not dungarees, but you know, you got like dungarees, but there's a skirt at the bottom. Whatever that's called, like a pinafore? I don't know, I could be making that up. I just love the way that she styles her uniform. I think it is so cute. Running alongside this Julian, Obi, Zoya love triangle, we have Max trying to pursue one of the teachers. His name is Rafa, and he wants to sleep with him, but he keeps rejecting him. So Julian tells Obi, she's like, look, I've learnt my lesson, we can get back together now, but he says no. So Obi then goes to Zoya and asks her out, and she's very hesitant. She's like, you know, I don't really want to ruffle any feathers, especially with Julian. I need to stay out of drama to keep my place at Constance now that, you know, the whole scholarship thing has come out. And he says, okay, I'm gonna find a way for us to date undetected. Audrey thinks that Julian can do better than Obi and that she should just kind of move on from it, whereas Monet is like, no, you need him for your image. You've built this brand together. We need him. You need to get him back. Julian messages Gossip Girl and is like, look, I will uncancel you because no one's believing anything Gossip Girl posts since Julian, you know, said she was with Obi. And so she's like, I will uncancel you, you know, give you your reputation back if you get me some dirt on Zoya. And Kate's like, right, we gotta do this, we gotta do some digging. Max takes Archie to a like bathhouse thing that Rafa goes to every week. He's like worked out from his Instagram that he goes there, so he takes him with him and he kisses Archie in front of Rafa to try and make him jealous, but we see that Archie kind of enjoys it. He's not really sure. He's kind of confused by the whole thing. Do you want to be my Be Real? That picture's so fucking awkward. Okay, it's fine. Zoya goes to Kate. I can't remember why. She's like helping her with some task or like name cards or something. And she confides in her that she can't go back to her old school. And so Kate asks Wendy, admin lady, can you, what is the deal here, you know? So Wendy speaks to Zoya's old school and they send her a video of the incident that got her removed from Buffalo High School, whichever one it was, I can't remember. And they take that video and they send it to Julian.
I don't know if it's just my accent or something, but every time that I say Julian, in my mind I hear that guy from Madagascar. You know, like King Julian? I don't know, like the way that they say his name in the movie is how I feel like I sound when I say her name. And it's just, it's very distracting to me.
So Obi's, you know, not date idea is to buy Nick and Zoya tickets to this fundraiser so, you know, they can spend time together, but it's not gonna look suspicious, you know. And while they're there, Zoya mentions that this whole charade really is kind of unnecessary. You know, this big fundraiser and all the money they're spending on food and drinks for these rich people to donate money, when if they just took that money that they're spending and donated it to buy school supplies for children, that would be a far better way to give money to these kids. Meanwhile, Julian tells Monet and Luna that this video is not for public consumption. She just wants Obi to see the video, nobody else. She just wants him to see what kind of person Zoya is, and then he'll come back to her. Also, while this is all going on, there's like a B-C plot where Kate is like flirting with Nick. They kind of have this weird like flirtatious friendship, which would be fine if she wasn't literally like cyberbullying his daughter on this huge account that's got like hundreds of thousands of likes of her, like, you know, in her underwear, or like, you know, her darkest secret. She's fully exposing Zoya on a daily basis and then flirting with her dad. This woman has some gall, I tell you. Julian is mad when she sees that Zoya has attended this fundraiser and brought her dad, because Julian has also brought her dad, who doesn't know about any of this stuff yet. If they meet, he'll find out what she did, he'll be so mad at her, which ultimately is what happened. Nick and Davis bump into each other and they're like, what the hell are you doing here? The lie unravels before her very eyes. And Davis is obviously mad at Julian for lying to him. about everything because the scholarship is his. Like, he pays for that scholarship. Kiki, Audrey's mum, she does show up to the fundraiser, but she shows up drunk and she drinks loads when she's there, and she just embarrasses herself, embarrasses Audrey, and Audrey's really upset. Archie tries to sympathize with Kiki and get Audrey to, you know, think about what she's going through and stuff like that. It just makes Audrey mad because she says that she wants a partner, not a peacemaker. She understands that he's trying to just be the good guy, but sometimes she wishes he would just take a side. Obi sneaks out with Zoya and takes her to this closed stationery shop. This guy opens it for him, and they go around and they fill their baskets with notepads and pens and all these kind of things so that they can go and donate them to local schools. When Julian hears that they left together, she decides this isn't happening, and she asks Davis and Nick to come with her, Monet and Luna, and, you know, meet them at this location. They're like, they're gonna catch them out. They've snuck off to do whatever they're gonna do. We're gonna catch them. It's, you know, it's gonna be over. When she actually gets there, Julian sees, you know, Obi laughing and Zoya having fun, and she says Obi would always want to do these kind of things with her, but she would always say no, and she starts to feel guilty about it, and she tries to stop it, but Nick and Davis show up anyway. It's too late. Zoya is mad at Julian, and then Nick is mad at Zoya, and it's just a whole thing. We then see that Audrey, in her kind of, you know, upset, distressed kind of mindset, she slept with Max after the fundraiser, after she, you know, told Obi to leave. They ended up sleeping together. So now Archie has kissed Max and Audrey has slept with him. Davis tells Julian that he forgives her and says that her and Zoya being together and, you know, getting to know each other and all that kind of stuff is exactly what Marion, their mum, would have wanted. Julian runs to try and find Zoya because she's about to resign or withdraw from Constance. You know, she's like, it's too much drama, and if we're not getting along, there's no point in me being here. And Julian begs her not to. She says, I want to have a relationship with you, and I also won't stand in the way of you and Obi. Zoya agrees to stay, and her and Obi kiss, which then ultimately makes their relationship public. And Julian tells Gossip Girl that she's not going to be using that video of Zoya. She's not going to be showing it to anyone, so Gossip Girl should not show it to anyone either. Episode 3 is called Lies Wide Shut. We've kind of got two things running alongside each other. We've got Audrey admitting to Julian that she slept with Max, and we have Archie admitting to Obi that he made out with somebody. He doesn't say Max, he just says somebody. They're both saying, I can't tell them. Audrey says, I can't tell Archie. Archie says, I can't tell Audrey because it would just hurt them, and there's no point in saying anything, so I'm just gonna keep it to myself. And they say it was nothing to do with the other person. It was, you know, there's not a problem with their relationship or anything. It's nothing to do with them. It was their own thing that they were dealing with, and they both still love each other, so there's no point in ruining it. Obi has dinner with Nick and Zoya, and Nick's really impressed, you know, really likes him, but Zoya's just distracted the whole time because she is being bullied online. It was started by Luna and then just picked up by all these students, and you know how the internet works, calling her ugly or like, you know, just all these kind of awful things. So she calls Luna and is like, please stop this, you know. And Luna offers to give her a makeover, which is so ridiculous because like Zoya's gorgeous and she dresses so cute. Like, she does not need a makeover. But Luna gives her like a makeover or whatever. Gives her these guidelines to follow, things like don't eat in public. This, you know, Upper East Side etiquette that she is supposed to follow. And while they're talking, Zoya lets it slip that she and Nick are living in their apartment. I think it's illegally. I don't know if it's illegally. I think it is, or it's just like, you're not allowed to. Like, I don't think they could go to jail for it. They'll just be kicked out if they'll just be evicted. It's like Monica and Friends, right? How Monica lives in her grandmother's apartment or her aunt's apartment or something like that. So it's not technically hers. It's the exact same situation. So Nick and Zoya live there, but it's actually Nick's mum's, and she's now in a home. So they're living there, but for them to be able to live there, she should also be living there or something. Anyway, They're not supposed to live there. They're not supposed to live there, that's the gist. So Julian is having no luck finding a new guy. So Max says it's because she's just like cold. Like no one knows anything about her. She's too polished, she's too, you know, all this stuff. So he obviously take her out clubbing, you know, let loose, and they have fun together. While they're out, Julian goes into the bathroom and there's this girl in there and she's played by Beck, you know, from You. Which is kind of cute because like there's a, you know, another Penn Dan connection there, and she's so gorgeous as well, just a side note. Anyway, she meets her and she's called Lola, and they're like, you know, classic girls meeting in the bathroom, hyping each other up, you know, whatever. And Lola's saying how she's here with this guy and they've been dating for a year but he won't go public with her, and Julian's like, oh, you deserve better than this, and you know, whatever.
Moral of the story, you can't rely on any man. You can only rely on yourself, right? That's so fucking true.
Turns out, when she then leaves the bathroom and her and Max are dancing, she sees that Lola is sitting with Davis, her dad. So her dad is the one that Lola's been secretly dating for the past year. Max also has a bit of a revelation on this clubbing night because he goes onto an app called Scruff and he finds his dad on there. So Max has two dads, Roy and Gideon. And his dad Roy, he finds him on this Scruff app, which I assume is like Grindr. Or Tinder, like one of those two. And he's obviously devastated because he's like, my dad's like having an affair, or trying to anyway. The teachers, they've decided they need to post more about teachers as well, so that it doesn't look so suspicious that it's just about students, I think. So they decide to post about an affair between two teachers. I think it's something like a history teacher and an English teacher or some shit, but the history teacher's stepping out on the English teacher with the librarian or something like that. But they post it as a blind item, so no names, no nothing. And they say, you know, oh, this couple's on the rocks, one of them is having an affair with, or had an affair with someone very close to them, like in their, you know, inner circle, right? Talking about this librarian. But Archie and Audrey see this post and both assume it is about them and what they did with Max. They both like confront him and they like ask him, did you post this? Why did you tell Gossip Girl about us? And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, I did not do that.
You told Gossip Girl about us?
Oh, for fuck's sake, not this again.
Again? What do you mean again?
Why is everyone on my case?
They're just starting to get like more and more paranoid by the minute that the other is going to find out what they did. It's so confusing. I hope you're following along because I myself am getting confused. So Max goes to Archie and he says, can you pretend to be Rafa? I want you to catfish my dad as Rafa. You know, set up a profile that looks like him and try to catch my dad in the act, right? Actively cheating on my other dad. So I've got proof. We get to see Gideon and Roy together a little bit more. And they're about to go to this event and Gideon is dressed very extravagantly. He's wearing the most amazing outfit, but Roy makes him change into a normal tux, doesn't want him to cause a scene, you know. Gideon's trying to express himself and be more androgynous and, you know, all this stuff, and Roy is very much like, tone it down, not letting him be his true self. While Max is very much encouraging of Gideon, says, you know, no, don't listen to him, go and wear whatever you want to wear. It's very sweet. Like I said before, I think Max is probably my favorite character, maybe him or Audrey, because I feel like he is very complex. His, you know, character development, even across just this first few episodes in this first season, is very good. He's got a lot of nuances to him and I really enjoy his character. So everyone goes to this play. It's very much like the original Gossip Girl, where it's like there's just always an event to go to, there's always a gala, there's always a charity event, there's always a play, there's always a whatever. So they've all gone to this play. It's all kicking off. So Julian sent Lola tickets to this play as Davis. So she comes to the play all excited, thinking he's ready to go public and this is the perfect place for them to go public, when in reality Julian has set up this whole thing, and Lola is really upset with Davis after she finds out that he didn't actually want to go public with her. It was all a scheme. Max exposes Roy's cheating, you know, tells Gideon everything, and you know, Roy is mad at Max for ruining their family, which is like, Max is like, I did not ruin this family, you did. I was just the one that brought it to light. Zoya and Obi also go together, but Zoya's being really weird. She's trying to follow these weird guidelines, so she's not really speaking to Obi, and she also won't eat anything with him, and she has to sneak off to eat food and things like that. Obi is getting frustrated, and she admits, okay, I was trying to like better my image. It's hard to keep up because Obi is kind of referred to as the Prince of New York because he is so rich and has so much, his family holds so much power and influence, that people online were like, how can he settle for Zoya or be dating Zoya? She's not good enough for him. So she kind of feels like she has to live up to that pressure, and Obi says, you know, you don't have to worry about that, I like you just as you are. And they kind of have a bit of a reconcile and they make up. And Obi says, this is why I broke up with Julian, because I felt like she wasn't being her authentic self, whereas you are, and I don't want you to lose that. And Zoya says, you know, did you ever consider that maybe you and your image and the pressures of that contributed to Julian losing herself in this public image, you know, obsession that she has? So Obi goes to Julian, apologizes for any part that he played in ruining their relationship, and you know, the changes that she has had to make. Back to Max. So bless his heart, to kind of deal with the pain of his parents' separation, he doesn't really know how to talk about it or anything like that, so he starts taking a lot of drugs, and you know, is drinking a lot. Archie and Audrey try to help him, and he just gets angry at them and goes on this whole rant and just says everything. He's like, what, like, you slept with me and you made out with me, and so they're both like, you did what to they're all like, it's all being exposed, it's all coming out in the open. And after he's done this, he goes to Rafa's apartment and he, you know, cries to him, and Rafa lets him sleep on the couch. There's also kind of a little B plot running along this with Gossip Girl and the teachers, where the school board has a meeting and the headmistress says, we want Gossip Girl gone, the parents don't want it, you know, all this stuff, we need to get rid. So they hire these secret agents or whatever to come in and figure out who Gossip Girl is. And Kate, Jordan, Wendy, they're like, we cannot let this happen. So they throw another teacher under the bus, like properly. They go for dinner with her and her husband, and her husband says that he was fired or something like that from his job because, oh god, it's so confusing, but he was fired. I don't know his name, we'll call him, I don't know, what should we call him? We'll call him Archie. So Archie is fired from his job, right? And it's because one of the parents at Constance was his boss, and he found out something about him. I can't remember if it was an affair, it was money issues, or it was something dodgy, and he finds it out, and I think that like parent then has him fired. And so they're talking at dinner and all this stuff, and Kate and Jordan are like, we can use this. I can't remember exactly how it happens, but they like, they kind of trick her, yeah. They basically like trick her, kind of coerce her into posting this tip, or at least sending it in, about her husband's boss and all this stuff, and obviously he's a parent at the school, so it's a big deal. Jordan, because he's the IT teacher, has put up a firewall to protect them from being identified as Gossip Girl. So he's like, as long as you post when the firewall is up, you're fine. So they can basically get her to make this post, but they take down the firewall when she posts it, so then the agents figure out that it was her, and she gets fired, she takes the fall, right? She's their scapegoat, which is all very dodgy, and like, I can't believe they fully just got this poor woman fired for no bloody reason, like just to be their scapegoat. Also, like I honestly find the whole thing very weird, the whole teacher thing. Like, they have this whole mentality of, we need to hold these people accountable, you know, these parents and these children, they need to be held accountable. Like, They're children. They're teenagers. Grow up. Davis apologizes to Julian for hiding Lola from her, and Julian says, I would really like to meet Lola if, you know, that's okay. And he says, of course, and then they're all good. Archie and Audrey are talking, and, you know, they kind of tell each other, no, I didn't enjoy being with Mac. It was just a one-time thing, you know, and they agree to put it in the past and not worry about it, not talk about it again. Meanwhile, Monet and Luna are plotting to take Zoya down so that Julian can be on top again, because when Julian's on top, it is beneficial for them also. So episode 4 is called Fire Walks with Z. It's Zoya's 15th birthday, but she doesn't celebrate it because it is also the anniversary of her mum's death. Obi tries to do, you know, really cute stuff for her. Julian's like, oh, he never used to do stuff like this for me. But then when she kind of explains why she doesn't celebrate that day, Obi's like, no, fine, we'll just maybe have, you know, just like a little intimate dinner together later or something like that. Audrey is worried about Archie. She thinks that he is, you know, hiding his true self and not being able to explore his sexuality, or doesn't feel comfortable telling her about it, which is upsetting her. And Julian says, you know, just talk to him, ask him, but without any judgment, you know, so he feels safe and he feels comfortable talking to you about it. Julian decides that she kind of wants to rebrand a little bit. She has kind of taken on board what Obi has been saying about her and Zoya, and comes to school without any makeup on, wants to be more authentic. And Monet and Luna are like, Monet and Luna do not approve of this. They think she's ruining her brand. And there's this whole B plot as well, which I don't really care about, to be honest. Kate wants to submit a story to the Paris Review, I think it is, and because of that, she's like, I just need a break from Gossip Girl. So she gives Jordan and Wendy the reins of Gossip Girl for the day, but then she has a bit of, like, you know, control issues about it and doesn't like what they're posting, and then is annoyed at them for not posting, and this whole thing. She says it was the only thing that she is good at. She didn't have something that she really excelled at in school or, you know, life, but she feels like Gossip Girl is something she's genuinely good at, so it's hard for her to not do it or to stand by and watch as other people don't do it as well as she does. Jordan says, this is not your life, you know, writing, wanting to be an author, that is your life, so leave Wendy with Gossip Girl. And he forces her to go back to her apartment and write this story and submit it. That's basically it. Luna drops a hint to Zoya that Julian has sent a tip into Gossip Girl, and she's very, you know, kind of coy about it. She's like, oh, I didn't think that she would send it in, like when I told her about it. So Zoya's kind of confused, and then she gets a phone call from Nick, and Nick says, I'm sorry to tell you about this on your birthday, but an anonymous tip has been sent into the housing board that we are living in Grandma's apartment when we shouldn't be, and he's going to try and stop them from being evicted. So now Zoya thinks that Julian has tried to get them evicted, when that is not true. It's obviously Luna who has sent this in, because Luna is the only one who knows. So Gossip Girl posts about a war between, you know, Zoya and Julian's confused. She's like, why is there a war? I don't understand. I haven't done anything. But Luna and Monet stir the pot again, saying, you know, we need to outshine her, we need to one-up her. You're gonna throw a party today on Zoya's birthday to completely, you know, upstage her. When Zoya finds out about this party, she then asks Obi to throw her this big elaborate party to try and compete, and Obi's just fed up with this whole thing, but he reluctantly agrees to go along with it. Rafa goes up to the little teacher trio and tells them that he knows what they're doing. He knows that they're Gossip Girl, but he won't expose them. He just wants to know if they've seen any tips about Max, because he was supposed to hand in an essay, which we know is not true. He just, you know, cares about him or whatever. But he's been absolutely ghost for the past few days. No one's heard from him. So I think they help him out or whatever, and he manages to find Max, and when he does, you know, Max is on drugs and he's clearly, you know, not in a good place, and Rafa tells him, you know, to sort himself out. But Max then threatens Rafa, and it's a whole thing. So he's like, you know what, fine, I won't try and help you. Just self-destruct on your own. While Zoya is sitting on the vet steps, this 12-year-old boy comes up to her and introduces himself as Milo Sparks, son of Georgina Sparks. I thought that was such cute detail. I absolutely loved that. He offers to help her take down Julian. So she goes to his house, and there's like this big library. There's all these framed pictures of Georgina on the wall with like famous people, and there's a huge There's a huge framed picture of Blair's face. It's so funny. It's like, why does she have that? Anyway, he says to Zoya, he's like, we're gonna cancel her, okay, it's gonna be fine. He finds an old tweet of hers where I think she was being, she was like body shaming somebody or something like that. So he reposts it, you know, tries to get it some traction, and people start, you know, kind of cancelling her online, saying they're not gonna come to the party and all this stuff. So Julian goes on live and says, this party is in honor of my mum and it's a fundraiser for lupus and all this stuff, which is like, fucking hell, Julian. And like Zoya's outraged. She's like, not only is she trying to upstage me on my birthday, but also she's now bringing our dead mother into this. And Nick and Davis sit them both down and they're like, we're sick of the fighting, okay, this is not what your mother would have wanted, so now this is a joint party for the both of you. Suck it up. Julian then goes to Monet and says she wants Zoya gone. She's had enough of her, she wants her out the picture, and she sends Monet the video. At the party, they're like firing shots at each other all night long, and Milo manages to get Julian drunk, because there's obviously no alcohol at this party because they're underage. But the lady that's serving food is like putting stuff into Julian's like cupcakes and her food, like to get her drunk. I can't remember how he said that he was doing it. So she's like out of her mind. Monet and Luna say that they found like a director's cut of this video. So there's a whole nother like part of this video that Julian hasn't seen yet. Audrey goes to Archie and says that he can tell her if he's, you know, gay. It's not about her and she's been making it about her, but it should be about him. And accepting himself, you know, and she said that she's here for him, which is, I thought was a really sweet scene between the two of them. And he admits that he's not sure if he's gay or not, but he did like kissing Max, and they agree, you know, going forward they're going to work through it together. Obi is getting annoyed with Zoya just being wrapped up in this drama. He says that she's someone that he doesn't recognize anymore, and Milo comes over and gives Zoya a heads up about this video, and Zoya kind of like dismisses Obi. She's like, I have to stop her from posting this video and ruining my life. But it's already too late. Julian gets up on stage. She's obviously absolutely hammered, and she talks about their mum, and it's really uncomfortable to watch. She says, you know, I love my mum, but she was really dishonest and she left us and she abandoned us, and Zoya's dishonest just like her, and all this stuff. Plays the video, and the video is of Zoya spray painting the school and, you know, running around and saying that she hates the school and all this stuff. The other girls in the video then lock her in this science room and they start bullying her, calling her a mother killer, all this awful stuff. It's a really like upsetting video. And then Zoya is like banging on the door, she's screaming, she's like, let me out, and then she sets a fire in the classroom. There's dead silence, nobody is speaking, and Julian is like, I didn't see the like this part of the video, like turn it off, and everyone is just like, I can't believe you played this video. So she has this kind of big, you know, moment where she says, I'm a bully and I don't want to be a bully anymore, I'm sorry, and, you know, apologizes and all this stuff. Afterwards, Julian and Zoya have a bit of a heart-to-heart, and Zoya says, you know, in that moment when I set that fire, I didn't care if I like got out of that room alive, like I just didn't care, I just wanted it to be over. And Julian feels really bad, and she says that she never considered the guilt that Zoya carries, because even though it wasn't her fault, her mum ultimately died giving birth to her, and she didn't realize the kind of guilt that that would leave Zoya with. And she says, you know, Marion, she wanted you to live, like she chose you and you shouldn't feel badly about that. Davis and Nick also kind of, you know, reconcile and they're fine as well, and Zoya and Obi make up, but she says that she wants to spend her birthday with Julian instead, and they eat donuts together and it's really cute. Max goes to Rafa and he says, you know, I tried to fix things, I tried to speak to Roy, his dad, but he just blamed me for everything, and he cries, and Rafa like kisses him and they have sex. So episode 5 is called Hope Stinks. It's Halloween, which I always love a themed episode. When we start the episode, a different school has a kid bring a gun to class, and they're blaming Gossip Girl on the news for it. And Kate says, we need to take a step back. We aren't posting on Gossip Girl for a while. Like, I need a break from this. This is too much. Jordan, even after she said, like, we're creating a, like, dangerous school environment, do not post on here, Jordan keeps posting. And so she disables the account. She's like, nobody is posting on this, like, stop it. Also, he hits on her and she's like, yeah, no, I kind of just see him as a friend, and it's really awkward. Obi tells Archie he's not sure about his relationship with Zoya, and things are just generally kind of awkward between them. Zoya meets this guy Simon on the bus and kind of clicks with him and tells Kate, she's like, I feel like maybe he's more my kind of person than Obi is. Kiki tells Audrey that they need to sell their apartment and move back to Connecticut because they don't have the money to keep living here and stuff, but Audrey refuses. She says, you can't move me away from all my friends. And Archie again tries to be like, can you sympathize with what she's going through? And Audrey again is upset. Archie calls Max's house looking for him, and Gideon answers the phone and he says, oh, Max hasn't really been home all week, but Roy just moved out today and all this stuff. So Archie goes to Rafa and threatens that he's gonna tell. He's like, leave Max alone or I'm gonna tell on you. But Rafa fully Uno reverse cards him and is like, if you say anything about any of this, oh my god, I feel like my voice sounds horrendous. I'm going to tell the school, I'll post on Gossip Girl that you were harassing me and you were following me. So back off. So it completely backfires. So we have Pippa and Bianca. These are two like rival girls from the other school, I think, to compete with them and this Halloween gala party thing. There's a costume competition every year. And Zoya and Julian decide they're gonna go as a joint costume to kind of compete with Pippa and Bianca. And they decide to go as the Knowles sisters, right? And because they're, you know, close, but they also have a little bit of a feud. Like, they're like, this is a really good idea for a joint sister costume. Zoya also like sasses Bianca and Pippa in front of everybody, and everyone loves it, you know, like Audrey, Julian, they're all like eating it up. But Obi is kind of, you know, like, this isn't you, kind of adding to that. He's not sure about their relationship kind of thing. Nick is starting to kind of like Kate and asks her to come back and hand out candy with him Halloween night, and she says yes. So there's kind of a bit of a budding friendship romance here. Audrey and Kiki get into a huge fight, and poor Audrey, no one's really listening to her. She's trying to say, you know, I might have to move, or, you know, I'm fighting with my mom, and, you know, everyone's so consumed in all their other stuff that no one's really paying attention to her. At the Halloween party, Pippa and Bianca are dressed as Serena and Blair, and it is so good. I think Pippa's the brunette. She's dressed as Blair from Cotillion, where she wears that like silver dress, and Bianca is dressed as Serena, she's the blonde one, in her wedding dress, I'm pretty sure, which I felt was an odd choice. Like, I don't know why she didn't go in Serena's Cotillion dress. Like, I don't know why they didn't go in like wedding dresses together or Cotillion dresses together. They like went for one each, like a mix and match, but whatever. They looked so good, and I just loved that nod to Serena and Blair. Zoya and Julian show up, and they're like, oh my god, someone must have leaked the costume, because loads of other people are also dressed exactly how they're dressed. So they're like, we need to salvage this somehow. To kind of get revenge on Pippa and Bianca, they dress as Dan and Chuck, which I thought was so funny and so cute. They dress as Dan and Chuck, and they stand with Bianca and Pippa to be like, oh, it's a group costume, you know, because obviously Chuck is Blair's date and Dan is Sabrina's date and whatever.
I'm Chuck Bass.
But Monet is just pissed off by the whole thing. She thinks, you know, Julian is just not listening to her anymore, and she quits being her PR. Also, Nelly Yuki was there, which I thought was another cute like little cameo. She was at this party too. This guy comes up to Max and he tells him that Rafa also slept with him when he was a senior, and this is a thing that he does. He sleeps with younger guys, specifically high school guys, right, so that they're seniors, so that they're technically legal, because the legal age in New York is 17. That's the age of consent. So they are legal, but also they're still young. So Max confronts him about this, and Rafa fully tries to like gaslight him and make him think his friends don't care about him, and you know, he's the only one that he has and all this stuff, and Max doesn't believe him. Also throughout this episode, like, Zoya and this Simon guy like chatting and whatever, and then Obi exposes Simon as a journalist and tells Zoya he just wants to figure out who Gossip Girl is. He's not a student, do not listen to this guy. And Zoya tells Obi that she's not sure if he just doesn't understand how different she is from the rest of the group, or if he does understand but that, you know, going out with her or whatever is for charity and makes him feel better about himself, I think is like the kind of conflict she's having. Then Audrey gets a call saying that her mum is in the A&E for an overdose, and everyone goes with her to the hospital, which was a really sweet moment, and they have this big group hug. And Max shows up and he kind of feels like, I guess, a bit of an outsider in the group, but Audrey calls him over into the group hug anyway. And I thought that was a really nice moment. I think one of the things that I would like to see them develop in season 2 is the friendships a bit more, because with Gossip Girl you got flashbacks and you got real moments of friendship to kind of solidify why these people are so connected. But with this one, I don't know if it's because there's so many of them, or we just have less episodes, but I don't feel as invested in their friendships. There's just so many people to keep up with. Like, sometimes Max and Luna have like quite sweet interactions, but then they don't really speak other than that. And then Monet doesn't really speak to anybody, and Julian and Audrey have quite a sweet friendship. We don't really see that so much until the end. And then, you know, like Obi and Archie are supposed to be best friends. We don't see too much of them. We just know that they've been friends since they were kids. I just want a bit more like substance to these friendships, because friendships is one of my favorite things about teen shows, honestly, most of the time more than relationships. So I would just like to see those kind of explored a bit more, so that we can really, you know, when things happen to these characters, then you know that the other characters are hurting for them and stuff. I think that adds more of an emotional impact. And this scene was kind of the first time that I really felt that these characters all cared about each other and were all connected. Episode 6 is called Parent Site. So Davis wants Julian to focus on her college and her career, not Instagram. He doesn't really see it as a proper career avenue. Julian's upset and she tells Obi that she wants to grow her brand into something important and asks Luna to help her. So Luna sets up all these brand meetings for her to do a collab with. Julian meets all of them, but she feels that they're really, you know, superficial. They really want to perfect her image. They don't really care about her as a person, more as just a product. And then one brand, I think it's Sephora or something like that, they say, you know, they promote black-owned beauty brands and individuality, and they would love to work with her and her specific personality, like they want her. So she chooses them and wants to collaborate with them. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that later. Nick asks Kate to dinner and she accepts. She tells the other teachers it's just to get dirt, you know, for Gossip Girl, but we see that she actually does quite like him. He, you know, confides in her about Marion and the whole, and all that stuff and how hard that was. And, you know, as she's saying goodbye to him outside their building, Jordan takes a photo and posts it on Gossip Girl, being like, oh, you know, the teacher and Zoya's dad, whatever. And so she's really upset with him and it's like, why would you post this? He's like, you're getting too involved. And she says, well, I did find dirt, but I can't use it because he would know it came from me. And Jordan's like, well, then what's the point? You need to keep this relationship professional. So she, you know, messages Nick and says, I think we should just keep this, like, not go any further. So after breaking things off, Rafa is now harassing Max. He asks Kate if he can help with Gossip Girl, you know, like do a little couple posts and things like that. And she says yes. Then when he has access to Gossip Girl, he posts that Max has an STD when he doesn't. So Max comes to confront him about it. He doesn't deny that he like sent the tip or whatever. He's like, I would rather everyone thought I had an STI and I didn't sleep with anyone for however long than sleep with you. I don't want anything to do with you. So then as revenge, Rafa messages Roy on the dating app and texts Max a picture of Roy at his house, like to kind of taunt him. Max goes to Roy and he tells him the truth about Rafa, and Roy says, look, nothing happened, I just had a drink, I realized he had bad intentions and I left. Audrey, bless her, she's really reluctant to leave Kiki at the hospital. She feels like they're not going to take care of her well enough, and she's really stressed and really anxious about it, to the point where Archie and Max get asked by a doctor. They're like, please take her home. We are getting complaints from patients, from nurses, that she is too much. Please take her home. Helena, Obi's mum, is in town, and Julian says, you know, Obi probably won't introduce like you to her. He's very weird about his mum. So Zoya ambushes her. She goes to meet her on her own, and Helena's confused because Obi was still dating. Julian has no idea who Zoya is. When Zoya explains and like shows pictures of them together, she's like, oh, I like had no idea, and invites Zoya to join them for dinner. The dinner is so awkward. It is so awkward. Like, Audrey is pissed at Archie's dad, Roger, who he like runs a bunch of newspapers or whatever. She's pissed at him because part of her mum's depression is the fact that her life was just all over the newspapers about the divorce and her business not doing well. Zoya's trying to talk, but they keep kind of just brushing over her and not listening to her. And she also, you know, has a go at Roger for trying to shut down these homeless shelters and all this stuff. Obi's mum is also in, like they do business together, so she was annoyed at Obi's mum as well. And she's also annoyed at Obi for not speaking up against his mum. So it's just a whole shit show. Roger, Archie's dad, has a lawsuit against him at the minute for being homophobic, and Audrey kind of blurts out, you know, you should be careful what you say because you never know how someone sitting at the table might identify, which was a really sweet point to make, like, yes, but it kind of outed Archie because they were like, well, who here would be offended by something like that? And he's not there to defend himself and say that he isn't, so they kind of come to the conclusion, oh, she's talking about Archie. So she feels really awful about that. Obi and Zoya fight about how he won't stand up to his mother, and, you know, he and his mother both treat Julian differently than they have treated Zoya. Obi goes to Julian and says, you know, stop giving Zoya advice, stop talking to her, you're messing with my relationship. And Julian's like, look, this is not my fault. Like, you need to learn to stand up to your mother, not be afraid to show her who you really are and the things that you care about. So Obi does a live stream at this protest that is against the knocking down of the homeless shelter, you know, like that his mum and Archie's dad are involved in. And he's streaming it live, and Zoya sees it and she thinks it's because of her telling him to stand up to his mum, but we kind of know it's probably more likely because Julian told him to. Julian also sees the live and goes to the protest and is really, you know, proud of him. So then Zoya shows up to the protest and she sees Julian and Obi together, and she's like, you know, for God's sake, right, okay, and she goes to leave. Julian goes after her, and Zoya says, are you still in love with him? Just be honest with me. And admits, yes, she is, but she's not going to do anything about it. Kiki wakes up in the hospital and she apologizes to Audrey, and they have this really sweet heart-to-heart where Kiki admits she does need Audrey's help and that she's struggling, and Audrey, you know, says she supports her and wants to be there for her. Roger, this shady man, he asked Archie to meet him at the protest. And Archie's kind of like, why have you asked me to come here? Because there's press there. The press asked Roger, they're like, oh, any comments about you know, discriminating against the LGBT employees at your company? And Roger like brings Archie on camera and says, how could I be homophobic when my son is gay himself? And literally outs him to the whole world. Like, it is awful. Julian then gets a call from the brand that she, you know, is having a deal with, and they say, look, we can't offer you this deal if you're going to be at a protest. And she says, well, why not? You said you wanted me, you wanted my individuality, this is something I'm passionate about and, you know, something that's important to me. And they're like, well, you can talk about your values online, but protests are a no. So Julian says, well then, I don't want to work with you, and she stays at the protest. The protest then gets, like, you know, shut down by the police. Obi and Julian are running and like hiding together, and they kiss. Max, to get revenge, then sends a video of him having sex with Rafa to Gossip Girl. But because Rafa is logged into the Gossip Girl account, he deletes it, he gets rid of it. But before he can delete it, Kate, Wendy and Jordan all see it, and then it's just gone. And they're like, what are we supposed to do now that we know about this? Audrey makes dinner for Archie and Max to thank them for being there for her during, you know, this hard time, and they all end up sleeping together. Roger is on a plane and he leaves Archie this message saying he's sorry and that he supports him, and also that he should stay away from Julian, but he doesn't say why. Episode 7 is called Once Upon a Time in the Upper West. It's a Thanksgiving episode, and you know I love a Thanksgiving episode. If you haven't seen it yet, please go and watch my last video, which was a ranking of all the Gossip Girl Thanksgiving episodes. This one was actually pretty good. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I think this is probably my favorite episode of the series. So meet Saskia, I think it is, and she is Max's birth mum. And Max called her to kind of, you know, mediate between Roy and Gideon, try and get them back together, get them both, you know, happy again. And Max is also wondering why Gossip Girl hasn't posted his tip about Rafa yet. He's kind of confused, like, this is good dirt, why is it not up yet? We also find out that Julian and Obi didn't just kiss, they also had sex. Rafa then confronts Kate and Jordan about seeing the video, and he reveals that he has changed the Gossip Girl password. He's changed the password to the account, and he's going to hold it for ransom. So they need to find him good dirt on Max, so that if Max ever wants to expose him again, he can expose him right back. When they find good dirt for him, he will give them Gossip Girl back. Julian feels really guilty, and she tells Zoya to reconcile with Obi, and Audrey overhears the whole thing, and she's like, oh my god, you slept with him, didn't you? You shady lady. If you want to be with Obi, you should just be with him. But Julian says no. She's like, Zoya and Obi should be together, I just messed up. So Audrey and Archie, they struggle to have sex again, just the two of them, and they, you know, want to have sex with Max again. But Max says, you know, that's not the rules. If you have a threesome, you then have to sleep together, just you two, again, to kind of regain that closeness. Then you will be ready to have another threesome. Don't involve me again until you've sorted your stuff out. Obi tells Zoya that he doesn't want to go back to Julian, you know, and he tells her that he loves her. But, you know, we like see that obviously he is still in love with Julian, and he just said this to her to kind of mend this bridge, and he doesn't really mean it. So Zoya tells Julian, and she's really excited. It's, bless her heart, like she's so excited to tell her, and Julian's not very excited. Julian's obviously upset because she is the one that she loves Obi, and also that she knows, I think she knows deep down that he doesn't really mean it, so she's upset that Zoya's all happy when it's not really real. So she's not excited, which upsets Zoya. And Julian confronts Obi, and he says that he loves Julian and he has always loved her, and they kiss and everything, and he begs her like, please come upstairs, but she says no. Someone takes a picture of them kissing and sends it into Gossip Girl, but because Rafa has Gossip Girl, he's not posting any tips, so nobody knows that they are back to, like, not back together, but nobody knows that they've kissed yet. Archie's mum, Jody, who was at the dinner, she tells Archie that she loves him and she, you know, accepts him, and that's a really sweet moment. Saskia and Max have this plan to basically parent trap Roy and Gideon, and everybody ends up showing up to Zoya's Thanksgiving because she says, oh, we have like an open door policy. And at first everyone like rejects her and is like no, but all their plans fall through, so everyone ends up there. We've got Zoya, Nick, Obi, Julian, Davis, Lola, Jordan, Kate, Audrey, Kiki, Archie, Jody, Max, Gideon, Roy, and Saskia. So Zoya tells Obi that she's ready to have sex with him now that she knows how he really feels about her, which is so sad. Like, she's literally only 14. Like, no, that's no. And she obviously loves him and wants to be with him, and he is just lying to her, and it's just so sad. And he goes to Julian and he says that he doesn't want to sleep with Zoya. So they're all sat around the table, Thanksgiving dinner, and it is 10 out of 10 on the drama scale. It reminded me of the Gossip Girl, The Treasure of the Serena Madre, where you've got like Jason Derulo playing in the background. It was that kind of vibe. Like, everyone is all arguing about different things. We've got so much going on. So I've got a list of everything they talked about. Lola reveals that her and Davis are engaged. Archie reveals the threesome that he and Audrey and Max had. And Audrey and Jody are both like proud of him for being able to like speak out about it and just like talk about it freely. Max admits that he slept with Rafa. and that he feels guilty, like that he shouldn't have pursued him, which is really sad because that's not the case. Like, the teacher in this situation should have known better and not engaged in that. Gideon and Roy argue. Saskia reveals she got fired from some movie. Archie confronts Obi about being weird around him since he's come out. Zoya figures out that Julie and Obi slept together. Archie listens to the voicemail from his dad and is like to Julian, why would I need to stay away from you? So now that's all out in the open. Davis admits because he was illegally Marion's wife, he refused to let Nick in while Zoya was being born and while Marion died. That was like, Jesus Christ. So he literally, Zoya was being born and Nick couldn't be there for her birth, and then also Marion died and he couldn't say goodbye to her, which is so sad. And then Kate films Max saying that he feels guilty that he pursued Rafa, and he sends it to him as like, this is your dirt, okay, welcome. So it was just so much, there's so much going on. Honestly, it was like, the drama was good. Rafa tells Jordan and Kate that he's quitting Constance. You know, he realizes what he did was wrong and it was awful. He gives them Gossip Girl back, but he says like, you really should stop doing this. Zoya tells Julian there's nothing between them now. They're, you know, sisterly friendship, nothing, it's over. Lola's then like a bit drunk and in the bathroom, and Kate comes in and Lola is crying, and she says that she's upset that no one cared about their engagement, and she also doesn't know if Davis is marrying her because he wants to or because he doesn't want her to testify against him. So Kate's like, testify? Like, what are you talking about? We don't get to see what she said, but it gets obviously revealed in the next episode. But Jordan tells Kate she needs to use what she has on Davis, and Kate's like, this is way too big. Like, this is too big for a little Gossip Girl like drama site. This is serious shit. Episode 8 is called Posts on a Scandal. Audrey and Archie are really happy together, which kind of upsets Max to see because he's obviously starting to develop feelings for both of them. He tries to sleep with this ballerina, but he can't get it going. And Luna tells him it's because sleeping with Audrey and Archie added emotion into sex that he hadn't put there before. You know, he hadn't had a kind of emotional attachment to anyone before that he was sleeping with or been in love with anyone. And now because he has, he doesn't want to have meaningless sex anymore, so it's not working. Davis had a like secret apartment where he would go meet Lola, and he offers this apartment to Nick and Zoya to live in since they're being evicted. Obi and Helena, they make this public apology on the news about the protest, and Obi apologizes and it's the whole thing. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care for Obi's storylines. I find him kind of irritating. I don't even know how this has happened, okay? Because I don't remember this happening. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But there's like now a weird board of teachers that all know about Gossip Girl, right? So you got Kate and Jordan and Wendy, but then you've also got these other teachers. You got this older one called Sharon, one called, I think, like Tati, and this gym teacher called Scott. There's like a whole board of them that now know about Gossip Girl, and they're deliberating whether to post the Gossip Girl tip about Davis or not, and they're also deliberating whether to push Kate out because she is getting too involved like with the students personally, and she can't separate those feelings from like the job of Gossip Girl, right? It's all very ridiculous. So Gossip Girl posts that Davis got a woman drunk to make her consent to sleeping with him, but to avoid, you know, like a libel court case or a defamation court case, they don't mention his name and they blur him out of a picture, but it's obvious that it's him. And Julian confronts him about it, and he insists that it's not true and he's never been alone with this woman. Julian believes him. Zoya gets angry at Nick and Julian for both, you know, believing Davis, and, you know, Nick is like, look, if it was me, you would be believing me, you would be defending me because I'm your dad. And that's exactly what Julian is going through. So you should reach out to her and see how she's doing rather than just judging her. And the woman's name that has come forward is Lauren Thompson. So Archie asked Roger about it. So this is obviously why he wanted Archie to stay away from Julian, because of this whole scandal. He's like, you know, why didn't you run the story in the newspaper? And Roger says they can never get anyone to confirm Lauren's story or prove that she spent any time with Davis. And Archie tells Julian this, and Julian's obviously very happy because she believes that the story isn't true, and she tells Zoya, you know, it's fine, someone's just trying to take down my dad, like it's no big deal. but Zoya's annoyed that Julian's letting him off the hook and isn't considering that there could be more to this story. So Zoya sends a tip into Gossip Girl about Davis having a second apartment, even after Kate is like, you probably shouldn't send that in. Jordan says, look Kate, you have to post this tip or it's going to look suspicious because you already told Zoya it was a bad idea to send it. So if we don't post it, then she might connect the dots that Gossip Girl is you. Lola then tells Julian that Davis is like waiting now to do their proposal, like until after all this is blown over, which she thinks is a little bit suspicious. Roger has this whole thing with Archie where he tells him that his friends manipulate him for their benefit and that he's weak and, you know, all this stuff because he's trying to help Julian and stand by her. And he decides he's not going to tell him anything else about Davis. You know, he's done giving him any information because he just goes and takes it straight to Julian. And the two of them then have dinner with Obi and his mum, and Helena wants Obi to apologise for the protest and for speaking out against Roger, and Obi refuses, you know, standing up for himself, and Archie agrees. You know, he's like, good job Obi. Archie says to his dad that standing up for your friends is not weak, not standing up for them is weak actually, and he asks if he can like book them a car or something to like leave, and Roger's like fine and gives him his phone. And Archie goes into his phone and sends everything to do with Davis to Julian so that she can read it all. Nick admits to Zoya that he's really the reason that she and Julian don't have any kind of relationship, because after everything that went down, Davis actually did feel guilty and he felt bad, and when Zoya was younger he sent a letter. Nick never replied to it. He would continue to try and reach out and visit and try to get Zoya and Julian together, and Nick would always say no. The board of teachers decide to kick Kate out of Gossip Girl, which is so dumb because she literally started it, and like, Kate, stand up for yourself. We met these people 5 minutes ago, but she's fully ready to like hand over her phone to them and have them remove Gossip Girl from her phone and all this stuff, which I don't get, because it must be her email that's attached to it or whatever. I don't get why she doesn't just, I mean obviously it's for the plot of the show or whatever, but she could literally just sign them all out and keep Gossip Girl. And I guess they could expose that it's her, but like, who would really believe them? Or I don't know. It just felt weird to me that she was so willing to just roll over and give them Gossip Girl. Like this band of teachers we've only just met 5 minutes ago, and also they're all irritating. Every single one of them. Which I'm sure they're meant to be, but like, even so. So Julian figures out that it wasn't actually Lauren, the woman that came forward, but it was actually a girl called Riley. Davis is like a music producer. Riley was a singer that was working with Davis at the time, and she was actually the one that was taken advantage of, but she was nervous about stepping forward, so Lauren, her manager or something, came forward instead, so you know that justice could still be served, but Riley's name would be kept out of it. So now that Julian knows what she's looking for, she goes through Davis's old BlackBerry and finds texts from Riley, obviously not Lauren because there were no texts from Lauren, but she finds texts from Riley being like, I don't remember anything, what happened, did we sleep together? And there's also, you know, texts from other women saying, what was in that drink, I don't remember things, and all this stuff. So Julian is like, oh my god, it's true. Julian leaves with Zoya and goes to stay with her while this whole thing is kind of unfolding. Also, Obi, I think as like to take a stand against his parents, sends a picture of their tax returns to Gossip Girl saying like, you should do something about this, and Jordan deletes it. I don't know why, because this never comes up again, but I think maybe in season 2 maybe we'll see that there's some connection between Jordan and Obi, unless I'm just completely wrong and I missed something and then someone can tell me why he did that. But yeah, he deletes the tip and doesn't post it, and Obi's kind of confused. He's like, why is Gossip Girl not posting this? So episode 9 is called Blackberry Narcissus, I think is how you say it. And Zoya and Julian tried to go to a lawyer about Davis, but she says it's not really a case and they should not do anything. You know, it's not their place to tell these women's stories. If they want to come forward, then they will come forward. Max really wants his parents back together, and he's not happy that Gideon has started, you know, kind of dating and exploring the dating world. Roy tells Max that he will wait however long it takes for Gideon to forgive him and that he wants him back. So bless him, like Max is kind of stuck in the middle where one dad wants to move on and wants to be himself, but the other is still giving Max that hope of like he wants to be a couple again. So it's just he's trying to like mediate the whole thing. And this is a side note as well, but Max being a good chef is such a cute detail. Like when Kiki was in the hospital, he brought Audrey like a quiche, I think, or something that he'd made, and like in this episode he's making croissants, and I just think that's like such a sweet little like nuance about his character. So this guy at school, Rex, hits on Archie, and Audrey says that it's fine, you know, she's happy for him to explore his sexuality. So while Archie is on this kind of date thing with Rex, Audrey gets hit on by this barista called Jameson, but Archie isn't sure how he like feels about it. So they kind of each explore these different connections, but ultimately they come back to each other and they say, you know, it's quite sweet actually, they thank each other for giving the consent to go out and explore these things and, you know, explore themselves. But now they've come back and they realize they're not open relationship people and they love each other and they're happy together. And Davis tells Julian that he didn't intend to take advantage of these women and, you know, he doesn't want to lose her. While they're talking, someone takes a picture, sends it to Gossip Girl, and because Gossip Girl is being controlled by this new gym teacher, Scott, he is on a bit of a rampage. He doesn't care about the impact or anything like that. He's just like posting the tips, just wants to take these students down. So he posts that Julian is helping Davis, and Kate is upset and she's like, you know, Scott is like a guy, he doesn't understand how hard it is for women to rebuild their image and how this is going to affect Julian. He can't possibly understand how it will affect her in the public eye. And Julian then later catches Davis trying to take the BlackBerry that has the incriminating text on it from her bag, and she just confronts him about it. She's like, well, why would you take it? And then he, you know, is like, fine, you keep it, and it's the whole thing. So Julian then goes to Zoya and says, please help me, I want to find these women, I want to talk to them, I want to help them. And they go on this mission together. The first woman they speak to, she says, look, I don't really remember enough to give a true statement, and also I'm married now, I have a kid, like this would disrupt my whole life. Julian goes to speak to Riley. Gossip Girl is kind of trying to follow them around, so Julian gets Archie, Audrey, Max, over like everyone to log into her Instagram, her Twitter, her all these like different platforms and post that she's somewhere else so that Gossip Girl can't find her. And she meets Riley in this art gallery, you know, away from the press, and she starts talking to her. But Kate and Jordan are there, and Jordan gives Kate access to Gossip Girl and it's like, you know, what are you gonna do? And she's like, I need to try and help Julian, and goes live on Instagram and live streams Julian talking to Riley, thinking, okay, if people see that Julian is trying to help survivors, this will help her image and this will kind of, you know, disprove that she's helping Davis. But it completely backfires because Nick is a lawyer. I don't know if I mentioned that. Zoya's dad, Nick, he's a lawyer, and he said to Julian, you cannot get Riley to come forward, because if she comes forward it proves that Lauren, the original woman who was covering for Riley, was lying, and that'll throw the whole case into question. You know, we don't have anyone else to give a statement or anything, so it'll seem, you know, Lauren lied, so why should we believe Riley, right? So Julian sits down with Riley and Riley says, I'm ready, I want to come forward. And Julian's like, I'm really sorry, but I have to ask you not to. And so this goes live on Gossip Girl. Kate's like, oh my god, I've made it so much worse. Everyone's cancelling Julian. Everyone is angry at her. But in reality, if you just kept filming, Julian says, I need to ask you not to say anything because legally it will be bad for you. She's like, we just need to work out a way for you to speak up later down the line maybe, or, you know, we just need to work this out legally. We're going to talk to Nick and kind of see what we can do. So she was supporting Riley, but just this small snippet has now made it seem like she's trying to silence survivors, and the whole internet is cancelling her. And also Max, while this is all happening, I forgot to mention, Max goes to Archie and Audrey and he wants to tell them how he feels about them, but before he can say anything, they're kind of talking about how they realise they're happy together, just the two of them, they don't need anyone else, so he feels a bit disheartened and he doesn't say anything. Episode 10 is called Final Cancellation. We see Davis apologising on TV and also thanking Julian for supporting him, which again adds fuel to the fire, or whatever you want to call it, of this whole Julian cancellation. Nick is now, you know, obviously looking after Julian and Zoya and is trying to find a place for them to live because he doesn't want to take Davis's apartment anymore. Scott is ruining Gossip Girl. He's trying to destroy Julian, destroy all these other students. And so Kate asks him out for dinner to try and get hold of his phone and put a stop to it. Also, another side note, Monet's red hair in this episode, gorgeous. Stunning, 10 out of 10. Max is avoiding Archie and Audrey because it's just too hard for him to see them. And bless him, he's like watching cartoons and eating ice cream and just kind of keeping himself to himself. Zoya gets a call from the school and they say that she's losing her scholarship because it's funded by Davis. They just can't accept his money anymore because of this scandal. So there's a new donor and Zoya's gonna have to meet with him and see if he will fund her scholarship. And it turns out to be Jeremy O'Harris, which is the guy who wrote the play that they went to like a few episodes back, and him and Zoya met then and he really liked her. So she meets with him again. He says he's happy to fund her scholarship, so everything's all good. To try and salvage Julian's career, they decide to throw a party that is a fundraiser for lawyer fees for survivors. Does that make sense? Yeah. And it's a disaster. And no one's going to show up to it, but they're trying not to tell Julian how bad the situation is, and Zoya kind of comes up with this idea to lie, well, like insinuate that Jeremy is going to be at this party, so then people show up thinking he's going to be there. So Julian kind of thinks it's a success, but it's so awkward, it's just awful. Julian asks like Obi to be her date, and she also wants to wear one of Kiki, Audrey's mum is a fashion designer, I don't think I mentioned that either, but she is, and Julian wears one of her dresses, and you know, she thinks it's going really well. Meanwhile, Audrey forces Max to take Kiki and her to Eleanor and Cyrus's Passover dinner, which I was like, oh my god. And we get to see Eleanor, we get to see Cyrus, which was so much fun. I loved seeing them. I love Cyrus so much. They say that Blair's like in Paris and stuff, so you get a little bit of an update. And we also see Dorota and Vanya and their kids, and I just thought that was so cute as well. Like, oh, getting to see old characters, it just warmed my heart. I loved it so much. But they're at this dinner because Eleanor is looking to give a designer a grant. So Audrey's like, great, if we get in this dinner, Kiki can talk to her, maybe she will give her the grant. Julian's obviously at this party, and because she's being cancelled, like they're talking shit about Julian at the dinner and everything, Audrey rings her and is like, please do not tell anyone that this dress was designed by my mother. It's a top secret design, don't tell anyone. And Julian feels backed into a corner while all these people are trying to interview her or like talk to her or whatever, and she says that it's a Kiki design, which completely embarrasses Kiki at the dinner table because Anastasia, Dorota's daughter, sees it on Instagram and is like, you designed this dress for Julian. So now everyone is like, you're in with Julian, like it is just, everything just blows up, like completely backfires. Kiki then tries to redeem herself. She shows Eleanor some of her other designs, and Eleanor says, look, I like your designs, I'm impressed by them, but I think you personally, I've been there, you know, divorce, business in trouble, stuff like that, pushy daughter. You need to heal first, and then I would love to talk to you about your designs maybe a year or two from now. At this party, Julian's like hardcore fans, like they've got like 13-year-olds and like all these like hardcore stans. They denounce her, they're like, nope, we don't support her anymore. So it's just, this party is an absolute shit show. And this board of teachers are so weird. They're just so weird about stuff. They're saying, you know, they need to hold Julian's feet to the fire until she learns. Like, she's literally 17 and she's being cancelled for something that isn't even her fault. She's being cancelled for something that her dad did that she has no part in. So then Julian figures out that people are only there because they thought Jeremy was going to be there. So she's upset with everybody and she yells at Zoya. But Zoya is like, look, I was just trying to help you. You just take us all for granted. Like, we're all trying to help you. Don't be mad at us. We're the ones that, you know, are on your side here. And Obi tells Julian that he loves her. And she's like, look, this is not really a great time to tell me. I'm kind of in a bit of a crisis. And then he's annoyed at her for, you know, being annoyed at him. And it's just a whole thing. Kate manages to get Scott's phone. And she posts saying, She basically posts a bit of a redaction and says that Julian isn't helping her dad. That was a whole mix-up. So Julian, you know, is starting to get a bit of her reputation back, and Scott agrees to not post on Gossip Girl anymore. So now Scott's out of the picture. We've just got Tati and Sharon left on this board of teachers. So Julian returns the dress to Audrey, but Audrey's upset and she says, look, I asked you specifically, don't say that my mother designed this dress and you completely ignored me to try and save yourself. She says that she agrees with Zoya, that Julian takes them all for granted, and she's sick of it. Then Zoya finds out the school has pulled her tuition because Jeremy, I think, is upset that obviously they all said he would be at this party when he wasn't going to be. So if Zoya wants to stay at Constance, her and Nick are gonna have to cough up the big bucks and pay the tuition in full, which they can't afford. Max tells Archie and Audrey that he's sick of being used by them and he, you know, doesn't want to be around them anymore. And Julian, you know, having now lost most of her friends and this whole saving her image doesn't feel worth it to her anymore if, you know, her friends are upset with her. So she deletes her Instagram and is like, I'm done with this whole thing. I really hope you can't hear that person singing. So episode 11 is called You Can't Take It with Jules. So this is a Christmas episode, which I absolutely love. I love any kind of special episode. Audrey and Archie go on a dating app and they want to find basically another person to have their threesomes with now that Max has said that he won't be involved anymore. And they try 2 different guys, but it's just not working. They're just not feeling it, and they realize what's missing is Max. They're not really interested in an open relationship or just, you know, a third person. It's Max that makes it special, and that is what they are looking for. This episode we meet Obi's sister. Her name is Heidi, and she's engaged to this German guy called Klaus, which I thought was like, I assume it was a nod, I'm not sure if it was, but obviously Lily married a guy called that they called German Klaus. And Max actually lost his virginity to Heidi, and he, you know, they kind of like sleep together sometimes, and I don't know, it's all a bit weird. But he tells Obi, he's like, I can't believe that Heidi's engaged, you know, she's like the ultimate bachelorette, she's like me, all in the single life. So he doesn't believe that the wedding is legit, and he thinks that Klaus is trying to marry Heidi for her money. And Obi looks at their family, like, business records and whatever, and confronts Klaus and is like, oh, so you're trying to make a deal, and then, you know, when the deal goes through, you won't have to marry Heidi and whatever. And it turns out that Heidi was actually the one trying to put this business deal through. So Klaus feels betrayed by her and breaks off the engagement. Then Heidi is mad at Obi because she actually liked Klaus, but she did want the business deal. I don't know, it's a whole thing. It's all a bit ridiculous, to be honest. It's like, nothing bugs me more than when people are annoyed at other people for just exposing shitty things that they've done. Like, I'm not even the biggest fan of Obi, but Heidi's annoyed at him for just showing that she was doing something really shady, and now she, like, Obi's the bad guy. Like, anyway, that's the last we see of Heidi as well. We don't see her again. While Zoya's in like a detention or something, she meets a girl called Shan, who is really cool. I actually really like her character as well. She's very rebellious and she's fun. She says to Zoya, you know, I feel like you don't know who you are without Julian. We need to find out who is Zoya. And she takes her to get her nails done and takes her for sushi and all this kind of cute stuff. Kate and Jordan, they get Scott suspended by sending in a tip, an anonymous tip, to the school that he is giving students steroids or like performance enhancers. And they're like, right, Tati and Sharon are left. So they're on like a full-on firing rampage. Jordan and Wendy, because Wendy's back in the picture now, they do some digging and they find out that Tati cheats for other students. Like, she gets them good SAT scores and their parents pay them. So they expose that whole thing and she also gets fired. So Sharon's left and they can't find any dirt on Sharon, right? But Sharon's plan is to, she's a very bitter old lady, no offense. And she is hell-bent on destroying these students. And she says, right, I'm gonna post every tip that's ever come into Gossip Girl and I'm gonna post exactly who sent it. It's literally like in, I think it's Gossip Girl season 5 when there's there's that website that shows all the tips and everyone who sent them. It's literally exactly like that. And Kate, Jordan and Wendy are like, this is a terrible idea, you know, please don't do it, you're gonna ruin everything. They manage, you know, to get her to give, like, to leave it alone, and they leave Gossip Girl. So now, once again, it's just the three of them, Wendy, Jordan and Kate, that control Gossip Girl. So Zoya lies to Nick about where she was going with Sean. She says that she's with Julian instead, and then he finds out and he's angry at her and grounds her. And Sean tells Nick that he puts too much pressure on Zoya to, you know, be perfect, and she can't keep up with it, and she just wants to like enjoy her life at the same time, but it's hard with all the like weight of the pressure. And so he understands that, and he agrees to, you know, take it a bit easier on Zoya. So they have a little heart to heart, which is quite a nice moment. We also see that Roy has sent Gideon divorce papers, which I feel like is a bit weird, because why? Because I thought he wanted to work things out, but whatever, I don't know. Maybe it's like you have to let them go for them to come back to you kind of deal. Julian's grandmother comes to town, and she wants to take Julian back with her to wherever they live, I can't remember, get her away from this scandal and everything, but Julian doesn't want to go. And that's kind of her plot line for this episode. But ultimately, when Julian's grandmother sees the relationship that Julian has with Zoya and Nick, and also her friendship with Audrey, she allows her to stay. So now Julian is permanently living with Zoya and Nick. So after, you know, begging Sharon not to release this Google Doc, the three of them are like sitting around together, and they think, you know what, actually, she might have been onto something. And they decide to post the Google Doc with all the tips and everyone who sent them. So episode 12, the finale of season 1, is titled Gossip Gone Girl. Jordan thinks this whole Google Docs thing was a bad idea, but Kate has kind of had enough. She's like, look, we need to let these teenagers sort their own shit out. But it is absolute chaos and mayhem, with everyone being angry at each other for who sent what, and just, yeah. So it's New Year's, and the group always go to Archie's dad's house in Hudson for New Year's. They have, you know, like a little New Year's party and whatever. And Julian wants Zoya to go with her, but Sean wants Zoya to stay in New York with her and spend it with her. Archie and Audrey tell Max that they, you know, want more than just sex, they want to be together, but he rejects them. Julian wants Obi back, but when she goes, you know, to see him and kind of reconcile, he's already seeing somebody new called Grace. And Monet has this idea, right, we'll make it a big party on New Year's, and then Obi can bring Grace, we'll push her out the, you know, out the picture, and it'll be fine. But when she gets there, Grace is super sweet. She, you know, says hi to all the staff, and she's really lovely, and Julian feels like she can't compete with her. Also, it was quite sweet actually, like we hadn't seen any of Luna, you know, really being romantic. We see that Monet kind of has, you know, like more random hookups and things like that. She doesn't really have a proper girlfriend. She just kind of, you know, does a bit of casual dating sort of thing, which I would like to see more about in season 2. I would definitely like to see more of Monet's kind of like romantic connections. But Luna, we hadn't seen anything really. In this final episode, we see that there's a guy called Rob who she hooks up with every year when they go to Hudson, and he kind of wants to move to New York as a romantic gesture, and they can be together, but she says she's not sure, she's worried it will ruin it. And, you know, ultimately she tells him she doesn't want anything serious right now, and he says that's fine, but he would really love if she would visit more, and she says that she will, which I thought was kind of a sweet little relationship there. So Monet finds out that Grace is a messy drunk. Okay, she's a messy drunk, and she's like, we can use this to our advantage. And they plot to get her drunk so she will embarrass herself in front of Obi. Julian can get Obi back, yada yada yada, which she does. They, you know, kind of like get her to take shots, and she completely embarrasses herself. But it really backfires because Zoya figured out what they were doing, so she's not happy with Julian. She doesn't approve of what they did. Obi's also mad at Julian for plotting this whole thing. So Davis goes to Nick, and he says, look, I will stay away from you guys. Like, I will, you know, I'll back off, but I would like to give you a check. I would like to pay for you to still live in this apartment, and, you know, because you're looking after Julian, I want to contribute to that. And initially Nick says no, he rejects the money, which when he talks to Kate about it, she really praises him for that. And she says, look, this could only end badly. You know, if you accept his money now, even though he says he'll be out of the picture, you'll be tied to him and he'll worm his way back in. But ultimately he, you know, thinks about it and he decides for the well-being of Zoya and Julian, the only thing that he could afford with this tiny apartment an hour away from school, they'd have to share a room. He says, you know, if I can accept this money from Davis, I can continue to live here, and you know, they're close to the school, like it is just better for them. Audrey and Archie, they really want things to work with Max, and they go to him and they say, look, to prove that we're serious, we will be a couple. It will not be, you know, because Max's fear is that he is the expendable one, right? He's like, you two are the couple, I'm just the third wheel here. If you want to get rid of me, you will. And they say, we're serious about this, so if you agree to this, we will be a couple. We will be, you know, thirds. It is completely equal. And if we decide to break up, we will all break up. It will not be, you know, Max has to go and Archie and Audrey stay together. It will be a clean break, all of them, because they don't work without him. He agrees. He says, you know what, fine, we'll give it a go. There's also a B plot. Kate is doing this thing where she has a job returning and exchanging gifts for rich people. So she just goes to their house, picks up their gifts and like takes them back to the shop or whatever. Because they didn't get a Christmas bonus this year. And she ends up doing a job for Camille DeHaan, so Monet's mother, and goes off on her, saying that she's entitled, that, you know, working at Constance is a privilege and she doesn't appreciate it and all this stuff. So Kate goes to Nick and tells her about this. She's like, you're never gonna guess what this woman just said to me, like, you know, ridiculous. And he tells her that he took the money from Davis. And she is so judgy. She is so judgy. She's like, you know, Zoya would do better with a dad that sticks to his morals or something. I can't remember exactly what she says. And so he goes off on her, as he should. I've kind of been waiting for someone to put Kate in her place this whole thing. Well, to be honest, all the teachers, like Jordan, Wendy, like all of them need like a telling off. The fact that Kate was first in line is fine by me. And Nick is like, you don't understand, you know? He's like, you don't have kids. I'm doing this for them, and I've had to make a tough decision here. You do not get to judge me. You do not get to judge me. Julian apologizes to Obi and she says that she, you know, loves him and wants to be together, but he says, I want to learn who I am without you and I need you to let me go. Later on at the party, you know, Obi and Zoya show up. And she goes over to them, she apologizes to both of them and says she shouldn't be meddling and trying to control their lives. She tells Obi that she called Grace, told her everything, and she's hired a car to take Obi to her so that they can spend New Year's together. So he's really happy about that. And she also asked Sean to come to the party to pick up Zoya so that Zoya can spend New Year's with them instead. So then Zoya's also happy. Monet sees all of this. She's annoyed that, you know, Julian is ruining everything. She's not following her advice. And she's like, I could have easily have been the it girl instead of Julian. And this gives her the idea. She's like, I'm gonna try and dethrone Julian. I don't really understand this last part, I'm not gonna lie to you. Because the way that the voice was talking, which is Julian's voice, but it sounded really like she was probably like plotting, and it just seemed so weird in contrast to like the nice Julian that we just saw. But anyway. So Julian messages Gossip Girl saying that she wants Gossip Girl back. She's like, you need to come back. And she says she will give her all of the dirt. All of the dirt on herself, on all of her friends, you know, everything. Everyone that she knows. But she's not going to tell her which bits are true and which bits are lies. While also like hunting her down, trying to figure out who she is. Right? So then it's mutual destruction, you know, all these tips are coming out, so everyone's going to be exposed, but then also ultimately Gossip Girl will be exposed, okay? And Kate accepts. She's like, yep, I'll do it on one condition, but we don't get to see what that condition is. And Gossip Girl makes a new post and Gossip Girl is back, and that is where we end episode 12 and where we ended season 1.
Hey there. Did you miss me? You know I've missed you.
that is everything that happened in season 1. Let me know what you think about it as well down in the comments. Did you enjoy season 1? Are you excited for season 2? Which bits do you like? Which bits do you not like? Which characters do you like? Which characters don't you like? I want to hear all of it. So kind of my, like, you know, personal thoughts. To me, the Zoya, Julian, Obi love triangle felt pointless. It felt more for shock value because, you know, oh my god, the sister and the boyfriend and all that stuff. But ultimately it adds nothing. We end the series with Julian wanting to be with Obi and Obi, you know, kind of loving Julian, whatever, which is kind of where we started. And Zoya just got her heart broken in the process. And I felt like Zoya and Obi really clicked in the like first 2 episodes, and I thought they were kind of cute, but then they just completely like ruined that. I don't know. To me, I didn't feel like it really added anything. I really like Audrey, Max, and Archie. I love, you know, their sweet moments, and I just think they're a really good dynamic. I find all of their characters very interesting. I don't know, I really enjoyed their characters individually, but also all together. And the idea of polyamory being brought into a mainstream show I think is really interesting. You know, it's not something that I know anything about or have really seen anything of in the media, so I think it will be interesting to see how that dynamic progresses, you know, the issues that they find with it, the, you know, good parts of it, how they kind of navigate that whole thing. I feel like will be really interesting. I always like when shows kind of push the boat out of what is seen as traditional, or, you know, the kind of standard romantic pairings or friendships or storylines that we see and have seen for years. I always like when a show kind of brings something a bit different, because this is like life. Do you know what I mean? I always find that there are some aspects of life that are so normal and, you know, are how people, you know, choose to live their life, that never are brought to light in the media. I don't know, maybe people think it's a bit too taboo, you know, because monogamy is the gold standard and people don't like to stray from it. People don't really like to talk about the idea of that not being the be all end all. So I think Gossip Girl bringing a polyamorous relationship to the forefront, you know, with some of their main characters, I think is really cool, and I'm interested to see where it goes. I think my favorite dynamic is probably Julian and Audrey. I really enjoy their friendship. I think it's the one that seems the most genuine to me. It felt truly established. We got to see, you know, how they were there for each other and their little fights and then overcoming those. I did enjoy. I do feel that the storylines come and go quite quickly. You know, there's lots of them, whereas I'd quite like to see less plot points but more in depth, you know, with more detail. There was just all kinds of stuff going on. We had Roy and Gideon's divorce, and then we had Rafa, and we had the teachers, and we had, you know, the love triangle that then wasn't a love triangle anymore, and then the thing with Archie's dad, and like, it was just so much. Whereas I feel like quite a few of those things I would have really enjoyed to see focused on more, and maybe a bit more detail, and seeing how the other characters, you know, react and all that kind of thing. Some things I do feel are more for shock value, which I don't appreciate so much. I think at points they can suffer in the same way that Euphoria does, which is being so out there. And I don't mean in terms of storyline and plot points. Like, I love when a show is out there with storylines, you know, talks about things that I consider taboo or, you know, shocking and all that stuff. I'm here for that. For me, it's more the visuals. And I personally, I don't care to see, like, I know they're not technically underaged, because the age of consent is 17, but like teenage sex scenes, you know? I just am not interested in seeing that. I wasn't with Euphoria, and I'm not with this show either. And I don't think this one is to the same extent, like, it's not as in your face as Euphoria is, but I still find it to be a little unnecessary at points. And I understand, obviously, they're of age in the show, and the actors are obviously way older, so they're fine. The original Gossip Girl got on just fine without them. I don't think they're necessary to keep audiences engaged or to shock them or, you know, anything like that, or to tell the story. I think the more implied or like just after, or you know, all that kind of stuff, the way that Gossip Girl had done it, the original Gossip Girl had done it, I think is more than fine. Things like Max being in that huge orgy, you know, and everyone's naked and like all this stuff, like he's 17. Like that to me, you know, just felt unnecessary to me. You can show that he's trying to escape and not deal with his issues, but just, I don't know, that to me just felt a bit like, was that really necessary? The original Gossip Girl was still shocking, still was able to, you know, ruffle feathers and all that stuff, but without the more graphic scenes. And that's not like, because I don't think you should shy away from, you know, sex and all that stuff. Like, that's the reality. People have sex. Like, I'm not saying don't talk about it, but the more graphic nature of it, I just feel can be a bit unnecessary sometimes. I don't know. Do other people think that too? I also think the styling for this show is 10 out of 10. I love the costumes. Like, I love the sets. I love the way that things are filmed, the way that they're framed. I think it is just so good. The set design, just everything. I love the way that this show looks. I also love the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack is impeccable. It is so good. In terms of season 2, because I haven't seen it yet, I really like the idea of Monet stepping up to be the it girl and try and take Julian down. I love that concept. I love a good villain character. I see a lot of people kind of compare her to Blair, but I personally think she's more of a Georgina. That more ruthless, you know, kind of villain thing I really like. I would like to definitely see more of her, to see more kind of sides to her, you know, her relationship maybe with her family or previous partners, or, you know, romantically, or friendships, or just a bit more about her. I would really like to learn. So I hope she seems to be more at the forefront this season, which I think is a really good idea, because I think she's definitely one of the best characters. I really love as well that Georgina is back. I'm so incredibly excited to see Georgina Sparks again. Like, I love that woman. I love that woman. So I'm really excited to see her again. And yeah, I don't know. Me personally, I'm not fussed about Obi and Julian getting back together. I would like to see Julian just live her best single life, or maybe, you know, a new love interest for her. I'm interested to see where, you know, Gossip Girl goes, if now that Kate has kind of had a bit of a rude awakening from Nick and Camille, that she will go like full on, like full in with the more brutal posts, or yeah, I don't know. I'm just interested to see where it goes. I did enjoy season 1, but I feel like just based on the trailer alone, I will enjoy season 2 more. So yeah, let me know what you thought. Do you like the new Gossip Girl? Do you not? Yeah, who are your favorite characters? Please let me know. And maybe I'll do another recap at the end of season 2 or midway through season 2 if they do like a break. Then I'll talk about the episodes that have happened so far and kind of my thoughts and things like that. Oh, and also just a little note, if you guys hadn't seen on my community tab, but I am working incredibly hard on my Ultimate Gossip Girl Part 2 video, which is looking at seasons 3 and 4. I have been editing it for so long now, and I'm hoping it'll be ready to go. So I have an official release date for it, how exciting, which is December 17th, which, fun fact, is the 10-year anniversary of the series finale of Gossip Girl, season 6, episode 10, the final episode ever. So I thought that would be kind of a fun anniversary date to post it, so look forward to that as well. Yeah, I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.